Sophia and Clara had been inseparable since childhood. Their friendship was the kind people envied, a bond forged through shared secrets, laughter, and dreams whispered under starlit skies. From their first day of kindergarten to their post-college plans, Sophia and Clara had always been there for each other, weathering heartbreaks, celebrating victories, and navigating life's challenges together. They were, as everyone called them, sisters in everything but blood. Sophia's life seemed picture perfect. She had a blossoming career, a close-knit circle of friends, and a loving boyfriend, Liam, who had been by her side for years. Liam was everything Sophia had ever wanted: charming, attentive, and deeply committed. They talked often of the future, sketching out plans for a home, a family, and a life built on mutual dreams. Clara, always by her side, cheered Sophia on, often joking that Sophia's happiness was her own. Yet, beneath Clara's wide smiles and encouraging words, a storm was brewing. Unbeknownst to Sophia, Clara's admiration had twisted into envy, and her envy had turned into something darker. Clara began to see Liam not as her best friend's partner, but as someone she wanted for herself. It was subtle at first, a lingering glance, a sly compliment, an offer to help with a surprise for Sophia that required spending time alone with Liam. Sophia, blinded by trust, saw nothing amiss. The betrayal came like a thunderclap, shattering Sophia's world. It started with whispers, snide remarks, and cryptic messages from acquaintances hinting that Clara and Liam were spending too much time together. Sophia dismissed them at first, unwilling to believe her best friend and boyfriend could cross such a line. But when evidence began to mount, a text message left unanswered, a suspicious change in Liam's behavior, and Clara's sudden aloofness, Sophia could no longer ignore her gut feeling. The truth came out in the most humiliating way possible. At a mutual friends' gathering, Sophia overheard a hushed conversation that stopped her in her tracks. Clara and Liam had been seeing each other in secret. The details, cruelly laid bare, hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. Her best friend, and the man she loved, had betrayed her trust in the most unimaginable way. Sophia confronted them that night, her voice shaking with anger and heartbreak. Clara stammered out excuses, claiming she hadn't meant for it to happen, that she had fallen for Liam. Liam, standing silently, offered no defense, his guilt written across his face. The weight of their betrayal crushed Sophia, leaving her reeling. Furious and heartbroken, Sophia severed ties with both of them. But the pain lingered, a raw wound that refused to heal. She hadn't just lost her partner, she'd lost the person she trusted most in the world. The betrayal cut deep, threatening to consume her. Yet even in her devastation, Sophia vowed to rise from the ashes, determined to rebuild her life and reclaim the happiness that had been stolen from her. Months after Sophia's world had been shattered, she was finally beginning to find her footing again. Therapy sessions, late-night venting to her closest friends, and immersing herself in her work helped her push through the pain. Yet there were days when the betrayal still gnawed at her, when memories of happier times with Clara and Liam crept in uninvited, reopening old wounds. Sophia was determined to move forward, but the scars lingered, faint reminders of what she had lost. One chilly afternoon, as she sipped her coffee and scrolled through social media, Sophia's stomach dropped. There, staring back at her, was Clara's radiant face, her hand resting on Liam's shoulder, and a caption that read, "We said yes to forever. Excited to marry my soulmate." The image felt like a dagger to Sophia's chest. It wasn't just the announcement, it was the unapologetic way Clara flaunted her happiness, as though her betrayal had been inconsequential. The comments below were a parade of congratulations, with mutual friends gushing over how perfect the couple looked together. Sophia slammed her phone down, her hands trembling. The anger, betrayal, and jealousy she had worked so hard to suppress came flooding back, threatening to drown her. The news spread quickly. Friends and family reached out, some cautiously asking if Sophia was okay, while others urged her to let it go. "You deserve better," her best friend Mia said firmly. "Don't let them rent space in your head. You're too good for this." But it was easier said than done. How could she simply forget? How could she watch the people who had destroyed her trust build a life together, unscathed? As the weeks passed, the wedding plans became a public spectacle. Invitations were posted online, engagement photos filled every corner of social media, and updates about the grand affair circulated among their shared social circles. Sophia avoided every mention of it, but it was impossible to escape completely. Each detail felt like salt in the wound, a reminder of the happiness Clara had stolen. One evening, at a small gathering with mutual acquaintances, Sophia overheard a conversation that stopped her cold. "Honestly, I don't know how Liam puts up with Clara," someone whispered. "She's so controlling. I heard she's the one who pushed for the engagement." Another voice chimed in. "And didn't she cheat on him once? I can't imagine this lasting long." Sophia's ears perked up. This wasn't the first time she had heard murmurs about Clara's true nature. Over the past few months, snippets of gossip had reached her, stories about Clara's manipulative tendencies, her dishonesty, and even her history of sabotaging relationships. It seemed Clara's perfect facade was beginning to crack, and Liam might not be as happy as he appeared. The idea of revenge began to take root in Sophia's mind, not out of spite, but as a way to reclaim her power. Clara and Liam's betrayal had taken so much from her trust, her happiness, her sense of self-worth. Watching Clara parade around as if she were untouchable was infuriating. Sophia knew she couldn't sit idly by while the woman who had hurt her so deeply continued to wreak havoc. Sophia started digging. Quietly and methodically, she reached out to mutual friends and acquaintances, piecing together a clearer picture of Clara's life with Liam. What she found was both satisfying and sobering. Clara's relationship with Liam was far from the fairy tale she projected. Arguments over money, jealousy issues, and Clara's penchant for bending the truth had created tension between them. Liam, it seemed, was beginning to see Clara in a new light, but he was too entangled in the relationship to walk away. The more Sophia learned, the more she realized that Clara's manipulations hadn't stopped with her. Clara's pattern of deceit extended to others in their circle, leaving a trail of broken friendships and trust. It was a bitter reminder of how easily Clara had wormed her way into Sophia's life, only to betray her when it suited her. As the wedding day loomed closer, Sophia found herself at a crossroads. Part of her wanted to let karma take its course, to trust that Clara's own actions would eventually be her undoing. But another part of her felt compelled to act. Why should Clara get away with everything? Why should Liam, blind to the truth, tie himself to someone who would only bring him misery? Sophia's inner conflict intensified as the weeks turned into days. Her friends urged her to focus on herself, to let go of the past. But Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that this was her moment to take control of the narrative. Clara and Liam had dictated the terms of her life for too long. It was time for Sophia to reclaim her power. On the eve of the wedding, Sophia sat alone in her apartment, staring at the stack of evidence. She had gathered a collection of texts, photos, and testimonies that painted a damning picture of Clara's true nature. She had the power to expose the lies, to shatter the illusion Clara had so carefully constructed. But was it worth it? Would confronting the past bring her the closure she craved, or would it only deepen the wounds? As Sophia wrestled with her decision, she felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. Clara had built her happiness on the ruins of Sophia's trust, and it was time for her to face the consequences. Whether Sophia's actions would lead to redemption or destruction, one thing was certain: she wouldn't be a passive spectator in her own story any longer. With resolve in her heart and a plan forming in her mind, Sophia prepared to step into the fray, knowing that whatever happened next would define not only her future, but the legacy of her friendship with Clara. The stage was set, and the final act was about to begin. Sophia had spent months trying to heal, but the knowledge of Clara and Liam's impending wedding was a constant thorn in her side. Despite her best efforts to focus on herself, whispers of Clara's manipulations and deceit kept finding their way to her. At first, she dismissed them as idle gossip, not wanting to invest more energy in the people who had already caused her so much pain. But as the stories grew more consistent, Sophia's curiosity got the better of her. It started with a chance encounter at a coffee shop. Sophia ran into an old mutual friend, Marissa, who hesitated before bringing up Clara. "I shouldn't even say this," Marissa said, lowering her voice, "but you deserve to know. Clara's been telling people some things about you." Sophia frowned. "What kind of things?" Marissa hesitated, then continued. "She's been saying that you weren't serious about Liam, that you had someone else on the side. That's why he moved on so quickly." The words hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. She had loved Liam wholeheartedly and had never even considered being with anyone else. The idea that Clara had spun such a damaging lie was infuriating. "I never cheated," Sophia said firmly, her voice trembling with anger. Marissa nodded sympathetically. "I know that. And honestly, a lot of people do. But Clara's good at playing the victim. She's even got Liam convinced. Sophia's mind reeled. She thought back to the days immediately following the betrayal, Liam's cold, dismissive attitude, and how he had so quickly aligned himself with Clara. It all made sense now. Clara hadn't just stolen Liam, she had poisoned his mind against Sophia to justify her actions. Over the next few weeks, Sophia began to uncover more about Clara's deceit. Mutual acquaintances shared stories of Clara's past that painted a very different picture from the polished image she projected. There were rumors of financial troubles, unpaid debts, and reckless spending that she had hidden from Liam. Then, there was the revelation of a previous engagement, which had ended abruptly when her ex-fiancé discovered she had been unfaithful. The most shocking discovery came from an unlikely source, Liam's cousin Rachel. "I always thought something was off about Clara," Rachel confided during a chance meeting at a local market. "She's been so controlling with Liam, making him cut ties with people who question her. He's not himself anymore." Rachel hesitated, then added, "I shouldn't be telling you this, but Liam's been having doubts. He mentioned to my mom that Clara isn't who he thought she was. He's starting to see through her, but she's got him wrapped around her finger." Sophia felt a surge of both anger and vindication. Clara's web of lies was unraveling, and Liam was beginning to see the cracks. But Sophia knew that as long as Clara controlled the narrative, Liam might never fully escape her influence. Meanwhile, Clara's paranoia was growing. She could sense that Liam was pulling away, and her desperation to maintain control was palpable. She began micromanaging every aspect of the wedding, snapping at vendors, and alienating friends with her erratic behavior. The once charming Clara was starting to show her true colors, and people were taking notice. Sophia realized that the stage was set for the truth to come out, but exposing Clara would require careful planning. She didn't want this to be about petty revenge. It had to be about justice. Clara had hurt too many people, and it was time for her lies to be brought to light. Sophia started by gathering evidence. She reached out to Clara's ex-fiancé, who was more than willing to share his story. "Clara has a way of making you feel like you're the only one who matters," he said bitterly. "But it's all manipulation. She uses people until they're no longer useful to her." She also dug into Clara's financial history, uncovering unpaid debts and questionable transactions that she had managed to keep hidden from Liam. Armed with this information, Sophia prepared to act. The opportunity presented itself at Clara's bridal shower, a lavish event that had drawn much of their shared social circle. Sophia wasn't invited, of course, but Marissa, who had grown increasingly disillusioned with Clara, agreed to let her know what transpired. The tension at the shower was palpable. Clara was in full damage control mode, making grandiose speeches about her perfect love story with Liam and dismissing any subtle digs from attendees who had started to doubt her sincerity. But the real drama unfolded when Liam arrived unexpectedly, looking visibly uncomfortable. He pulled Clara aside, and while their conversation was private, the aftermath wasn't. Clara stormed back into the room, her face flushed with anger, while Liam lingered near the door, clearly conflicted. Marissa later relayed what she had pieced together. Liam had confronted Clara about some of the rumors he'd heard. While he hadn't mentioned Sophia directly, he had expressed concerns about Clara's honesty and the future of their relationship. Clara, true to form, had turned the blame back on him, accusing him of being ungrateful for everything she had done for him. Sophia knew it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Clara's lies were no longer just Sophia's burden to bear, they were unraveling in front of everyone. The final straw came when Sophia decided to anonymously share the evidence she had gathered with Liam. She included screenshots of Clara's messages from the time of the betrayal, financial documents that revealed her precarious situation, and even a recording of her ex-fiancé's testimony. It wasn't about sabotaging the wedding. It was about giving Liam the truth he needed to make an informed decision. Liam's response was swift and decisive. Just days before the wedding, he called it off, citing irreconcilable differences. The news spread like wildfire, and Clara's carefully constructed image crumbled. Friends and family who had once defended her now distanced themselves, and the whispers about her manipulations became full-blown discussions. For Sophia, the revelation was bittersweet. She hadn't set out to destroy Clara's life, only to ensure that the truth came to light. As she watched the fallout from a distance, she felt a sense of closure she hadn't thought possible. Clara's web of lies had ensnared so many, but in the end, it was her own deceit that led to her downfall. The day of Clara's wedding dawned with an uneasy tension that seemed to hang in the air like a storm waiting to break. The venue, a sprawling estate adorned with white roses and gold accents, was picture perfect, but beneath the glittering surface, cracks were beginning to show. Clara, in her designer gown, flitted about like a queen orchestrating her court. Yet, her sharp tone with the staff and her constant glances over her shoulder betrayed her nerves. Liam, on the other hand, looked out of place. His forced smiles and distracted demeanor suggested he wasn't the picture of a happy groom. Guests whispered among themselves, noting the lack of warmth between the couple and speculating about what might be going on behind the scenes. Sophia arrived at the wedding, her presence a shock to many. She hadn't been invited, Clara would never have allowed it, but she had decided that this was the moment for the truth to come out. Clad in an understated black dress, Sophia moved with quiet confidence, holding a folder filled with evidence that would expose Clara's lies. As the ceremony began, the atmosphere grew increasingly strained. Clara walked down the aisle, beaming with what seemed to be a mix of triumph and desperation. Liam stood at the altar, his expression unreadable. Sophia took a seat near the back, unnoticed by most, but her presence caught Liam's eye. His brow furrowed slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing his face before he returned his attention to Clara. The vows began, but the words felt hollow. Clara's voice was steady, rehearsed, as she promised Liam love and loyalty. Liam hesitated before repeating his vows, and a murmur rippled through the crowd. He seemed to falter, his words trailing off as if he couldn't quite bring himself to commit. Just as the officiant was about to pronounce them husband and wife, Sophia stood up. "Wait," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. All heads turned toward her, and a stunned silence fell over the guests. Clara's face turned a shade paler, and Liam looked both surprised and apprehensive. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Clara's voice was tight, barely masking her panic. "I'm here to tell the truth," Sophia said, stepping forward. She held up the folder in her hand. "Liam, you deserve to know what you're getting into before you make this commitment." The room erupted in murmurs, but Sophia didn't stop. "Clara hasn't been honest with you or with anyone. She lied about me, about her past, and about her intentions. You think she's here because she loves you. She's here because she needs someone to clean up the mess she's made of her life." Clara's mask of composure cracked. "That's not true," she snapped, her voice rising in pitch. "She's just bitter and jealous. She can't stand that we're happy." Sophia ignored her, addressing Liam directly. "She told you I cheated, didn't she? That I wasn't serious about our relationship. That was a lie. I loved you, Liam. I never betrayed you. Clara did this to tear us apart because she wanted you for herself." The guests gasped, and Liam's face darkened. "Is this true, Clara?" he asked, his voice low and steady, but tinged with anger. Clara stammered, her confidence crumbling. I just told you what I thought you deserved to know. She wasn't good for you, Liam. I was protecting you." Sophia pulled out the evidence screenshots of messages Clara had sent, detailing her manipulations, financial records showing her hidden debts, and testimony from her ex-fiancé who had suffered a similar fate. She handed them to Liam, who flipped through the pages, his expression shifting from disbelief to fury. "You lied to me," he said, his voice shaking. "You lied about everything." Clara reached out to him, tears streaming down her face. "Liam, please. I love you. I did all of this because I love you." But Liam stepped back, shaking his head. "This isn't love, Clara. This is manipulation. I trusted you, and you used me." The room was now in chaos. Guests whispered among themselves, some leaving their seats, others glaring at Clara with disdain. The officiant looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to continue or step away. Clara's desperation reached its peak. She turned to the crowd, pleading for sympathy. "You don't understand. I've worked so hard to get here. I deserve this happiness." But her words fell on deaf ears. Even her closest friends seemed to distance themselves, unwilling to support her any longer. Liam turned to the officiant. "This wedding is over," he said firmly. Then, addressing the crowd, he added, "Thank you all for coming, but there's nothing more to see here." He walked down the aisle, leaving Clara standing alone at the altar. The once grand wedding had become a spectacle of humiliation. Sophia watched as Clara crumbled, tears staining her flawless makeup. Part of her felt a pang of pity. It wasn't easy to see someone so thoroughly undone. But she reminded herself of the pain Clara had caused, the lies she had told, and the people she had hurt. As the guests began to file out, Sophia caught Liam's eye. He approached her, still holding the folder. "Thank you," he said quietly. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up. I didn't do it for you, Sophia replied, her voice steady. I did it for the truth. Liam nodded, a flicker of regret crossing his face. I'm sorry for everything, he said, but Sophia simply turned and walked away. As she left the venue, Sophia felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. The chapter with Clara and Liam was finally over. The truth had come out, and justice had been served. Inside, Clara stood alone in the wreckage of her perfect day, her lies exposed for all to see. The life she had tried to build on manipulation and deceit had crumbled, leaving her with nothing but regret. The fallout from Clara's disastrous wedding spread like wildfire through their social circle. News of the dramatic revelations quickly circulated, and Clara's name became synonymous with scandal and betrayal. Once the golden girl of her community, she was now shunned by those who had most admired her. Invitations to events dried up. Social media posts were flooded with disdainful comments, and whispers of her manipulations followed her wherever she went. Clara, once so poised and confident, became a shadow of her former self. She avoided public places, unable to face the judgmental stares and whispers. Her attempts to defend herself fell on deaf ears, as the evidence Sophia had presented at the wedding left little room for doubt. Even those who had initially supported her turned away, unwilling to associate with someone whose lies had caused so much harm. For Liam, the aftermath was no less painful. The man who had once stood at the altar, ready to pledge his life to Clara, was now grappling with the weight of his choices. His betrayal of Sophia haunted him, especially now that he realized the depth of Clara's deceit. Liam tried to return to his routines, but his world had been shaken. He was plagued by the realization that he had allowed himself to be manipulated, and the regret of losing Sophia gnawed at him. Driven by guilt, Liam decided to reach out to Sophia. He knew an apology wouldn't erase the past, but he hoped it might provide some closure. He sent her a message, asking to meet, and to his surprise, she agreed. They met at a quiet cafe, a far cry from the grandeur of the wedding that had fallen apart. Sophia arrived with an air of calm, her strength evident in her composed demeanor. Liam, on the other hand, looked hesitant, unsure of how to begin. Sophia, he started, his voice tinged with remorse. I'm so sorry for everything. I was blind to what was happening, and I hurt you in ways I can never take back. Sophia listened, her expression neutral. I appreciate your apology, Liam, she said after a pause, but it doesn't change what happened. You made your choice, and I've made mine. Liam nodded, his shoulders slumping. I just want you to know that I regret it all. I should have trusted you, not Clara. Sophia's gaze softened, but only slightly. I've moved on, Liam. I've had to. What happened taught me a lot about myself, about strength, and about the people I need in my life. I don't hold any hate for you, but I can't go back. Her words were firm yet compassionate, and Liam realized that any hope of rekindling their relationship was gone. He thanked her for hearing him out and left, knowing that he had to live with the consequences of his actions. For Sophia, the meeting was a turning point. It affirmed her growth and her decision to move forward without looking back. She reflected on the journey she had taken, from the heart-wrenching betrayal to the vindication she felt now. Clara's downfall had been a result of her own choices, and Sophia took solace in knowing that she had stayed true to her values. With the drama behind her, Sophia began to focus on rebuilding her life. She threw herself into her work, channeling her energy into projects that reignited her passion. Her creativity flourished, and she gained recognition for her talent and dedication. Sophia also surrounded herself with people who genuinely cared for her, friends who supported her unconditionally and family members who reminded her of her worth. She started attending social events again, not as someone overshadowed by betrayal, but as a confident and self-assured woman. One evening, as Sophia looked out over the city from her apartment balcony, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. The pain of the past had faded, replaced by the strength she had found in overcoming it. She realized that her worth had never depended on Liam's love or Clara's approval. It was something she had carried within herself all along. Meanwhile, Clara's life continued to unravel. Unable to maintain the facade she had once perfected, she faced mounting difficulties. Her financial troubles, once hidden, became public knowledge. Her reputation was tarnished, and opportunities that had once come easily were now out of reach. Clara attempted to reach out to Sophia, hoping to mend fences and perhaps gain some semblance of redemption. But Sophia, while not holding on to bitterness, chose not to engage. She had no interest in revisiting a relationship built on lies and betrayal. For Sophia, forgiveness wasn't about letting Clara back into her life, it was about freeing herself from the weight of the past. She had forgiven Clara in her own heart, not for Clara's sake, but for her own peace of mind. As the months passed, Sophia's life blossomed. She took up new hobbies, traveled to places she had always dreamed of visiting, and even began exploring the idea of love again. But this time, she approached relationships with a newfound sense of self-worth and boundaries. Sophia's vindication wasn't just about Clara's downfall, it was about reclaiming her own narrative. She had faced heartbreak and betrayal, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more in tune with who she was. The experience had shaped her, but it hadn't defined her. As she stood on the threshold of her new life, Sophia felt a sense of gratitude for her resilience, for the lessons she had learned, and for the freedom to move forward without the shadows of the past weighing her down. The story of betrayal, heartbreak, and revenge had come full circle. But for Sophia, it wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. Sophia stepped into the warm morning light, a calm smile gracing her lips. The weight of her past, once so heavy it felt unbearable, had finally lifted. The chapter of betrayal and heartbreak was behind her, and ahead lay the promise of a new beginning. Her life now was far removed from the turmoil Clara and Liam had brought. Her days were filled with purpose and passion, as she threw herself into her work and hobbies that reignited her joy. She had recently started her own creative business, a small venture combining her love for design and storytelling. The work was fulfilling, and the recognition she received validated her decision to focus on herself. Surrounded by supportive friends and family, Sophia felt a peace she hadn't known before. She had learned to trust again, not blindly as she once had, but with the wisdom of someone who had seen the worst and come out stronger. The betrayal had taught her to prioritize relationships built on respect, honesty, and mutual care. Clara, however, faced a very different reality. The fallout from her actions left her isolated. Friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with someone whose selfishness had caused so much harm. The once bustling social life Clara enjoyed dwindled into silence, replaced by nights spent alone, reflecting on everything she had lost. Though Liam had briefly tried to stand by her after the wedding debacle, it didn't take long for their fragile relationship to fall apart. Without the illusion of love to prop them up, they realized the emptiness of their connection. Liam moved on, quietly rebuilding his life away from the chaos Clara had created. Clara was left to face the consequences of her actions alone. Regret crept into every corner of her life, as she replayed the choices that had driven away the two people who had once meant the most to her, Sophia and Liam. The loneliness was a stark reminder of the cost of her lies and manipulations. Sophia, meanwhile, embraced her solitude as an opportunity for self-discovery. On weekends, she explored hiking trails, wrote in her journal, and attended art classes. She even started volunteering at a local non-profit, helping others find strength in their own struggles. One afternoon, while sorting donations at the non-profit, Sophia overheard a young woman talking about the pain of losing a close friend to betrayal. Sophia approached her, offering words of encouragement, and sharing her own story not with bitterness, but with the wisdom of someone who had grown through the pain. As the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, Sophia stood on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the lessons learned, the strength gained, and the chance to start anew. The scars of the past were still there, faint reminders of what she had endured, but they no longer defined her. Sophia's story was no longer one of heartbreak and revenge, but of growth, resilience, and empowerment.